Welcome back to the News Hub here at WSJ Live. I'm Simon Constable. Well, Paul Ryan is really different. That's what David Wessel says, economics editor here at the Wall Street Journal. He joins us now from Washington, D.C. to explain himself. David, lovely tie. That is a great tie before we get into Paul Ryan. But you say he's really different.
Right. I mean, Paul Ryan, in one sense, is the latest in a generation of Republicans who've run on national tickets that talked about the size of government. But what he has done that's quite different from what his predecessors did is to say, if you want to have low taxes, then we have to cut spending. If we have to cut spending, we're going to have to give less in the way of government benefits. And I am going to be explicit about that. And to some extent, I'm actually going to tell you which benefits I want to cut.
Now,
and that's not something that Ronald Reagan did, or either of the George Bushes, or the people who worked for them.
Now, I mean, that sounds, the way you put that, David, that sounds so obvious. It sounds like someone sitting at the kitchen table is, you know, just saying, look, this is the money we have. If you want less of this, then you got to do that. It seems obvious, right?
Well, you know, politics is often the art of obscuring the obvious. So there was a school of thought among Republicans that dates to Jude Wanniski, actually, who was an editorial page writer for the Wall Street Journal, who wrote a piece when Paul Ryan was 6 years old and said that Democrats had made themselves the Santa Claus of spending, Republicans should make themselves the Santa Claus of tax cuts, and he derided those Republicans who said we have to worry about the deficit and we have to cut spending. So, for instance, Jack Kemp, a former congressman, NFL player, and Secretary of Housing, who was one of Paul Ryan's mentors, shows up repeatedly during this period arguing we shouldn't cut spending, we shouldn't talk about cutting spending, just talk about cutting taxes. Paul Ryan does not do that. He talks about cutting spending, and he's willing to tell you where he'd cut: Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps, and so on.
Is that because the deficits have become so big and so obvious to the public that it's sort of an idea whose time may have come for a politician to come out of the woodwork and say what is becoming increasingly obvious?
Yes, I think that may be true. I mean, compared to where we were when Ronald Reagan left office, taxes are lower as a share of GDP, spending is higher, and deficits are bigger. And a lot more of that spending is in the form of benefits than it was when Ronald Reagan left office. So in a sense, Paul Ryan is reflecting that. But it also means that this is a risky pick for Mitt Romney, because he's got a guy on his ticket who actually said where he'd cut the budget. And that's not something you often see in presidential campaigns.
So how do you think this is going to play with U.S. voters? Obviously, you've been watching politics here longer than I have, so give me some of your wisdom.
Well, I think that's a really open question. I mean, one open question is, will Mitt Romney really embrace the Ryan budget, Paul Ryan's budget, the one he crafted as chairman of the House Budget Committee, or will he start to put some distance between the specifics of Ryan's budget and what Mitt Romney says he'll do as president? The second is, how will people, the second is, will people be told the truth in as stark terms as I think Paul Ryan would like to? We already see in the competing campaign ads that both sides are taking stuff out of context and accusing the other side of doing this, that, and the other thing, and that may blur the differences. What policy wonk reporters like me are hoping is that this gets cast as a real choice, because it is. Paul Ryan and Barack Obama have very different visions about the size of government. If they can campaign on that, one will win and the other won't, and that'll give us some sense of where the American people really are on this.
Oh, great stuff. Thank you very much for clarifying that. It's a great column. Thank you very much, David Wessel. You can read the whole of that column in tomorrow's Wall Street Journal.